pray now that you will use me to, and use my words, Lord, use your words through me to speak today's needs today. Again, Lord, we thank you, we praise you for all that you do for us. In your name we pray. Amen. I'm going to talk a little bit about my testimony first, and then I'm going to read a little bit out of Lisa Turker's. I don't know, for those of you that are in shop, we have a shop group that we take devotionals out here, and once a month the ladies all meet. Have you heard of shop?
Sisterhood of prayer, purpose, and encouragement.
Yes, yes, which I love. And I love this. There are little tiny devotionals in here, and so I thought with us here not taking a long time, I brought some stuff for us to go over. It goes along with my testimony. Before I start, I just want to say that my testimony, I'm not speaking the testimony to glorify the bad stuff, because there's a lot of it. But what I don't want to do is to just skim over it, because I want you to see the unbelievable miracles that God has brought forth through all of it. Because when you look back in hindsight, when I look back, it's amazing to me. You know, it just strengthens my walk to see how God has walked me through all that. So I'm hoping that I can share that, and that we all have struggles, we all have things that come into our lives, we all lose loved ones. You know, we're all gonna face that at some point if we haven't already, losing people that we love. And I just hope that a little bit that I have to say today, you know, will give some strength in that area. So let me, I'm going to hand these out. And this is for in a minute after I give my testimony. We'll give it this. No, I've got it right here.
Thank you.
You need them?
Oh, a bunch.
They're thin, that's why I said they're just little.
It's only one, right?
Yeah, yes, thank you. And we'll go over those in a little bit. Matter of fact, Dottie, later on, how would you feel about?
Well, I have two of them. Read through a little bit.
All right, that way they don't have to listen just my voice through the whole thing.
All right.
Okay, so let me just tell you a little bit about myself. My husband and I, we've been married 42 years. We have 3 children, we have 3 grandbabies, and we live in Jennings. We came to Northside about 3 years ago, I think, and it was right at the perfect time. We got involved, and I'll talk more about the tragedy, but it's been amazing to be a part of that church. And God knew where we needed to be, because they rallied around us, and it was just amazing. So I'll get to that. But so when I was young, a little girl, my mom and dad got married. Both of them were young. My mom was 18, my dad was 19, and my dad, I'm not sure exactly what was going on with him, but it got progressively worse as they had more children. My mom and dad had 4 children, so it was, our last name was Ty, T-Y-E, so it was Tina Ty, Tony Ty, Tommy Ty, and Terry Ty. Anyway, my dad just, he grew up in a family of 10 children, and he was the baby of the 10 children. So basically, by the time he came around, he was being raised, I think, by his siblings, I think, by that point. They lived in Tennessee. My grandpa worked in the coal mines. They had, you know, the farm. I really don't know a lot about his childhood, other than I know he was raised in a Christian home. His brother was a Baptist pastor, but his life went off the rails. And in well, I have to do that, but my brother was 4, and my little brother died. And my mom and dad were already struggling with abuse, you know, physical abuse, verbal abuse, all kinds of behavior. And then when Tony died, it just went off the rails. I remember my mom taking a whole bottle of pills, and I was 5. And she just kind of went and laid down on the couch, and I think that she got to the point where she realized, I don't want to do this. I'm not going to do this. So she's like, you know, go call Nana. Nana was my grandmother. she says, call Nana. And so we called Nana, and they took her to the hospital and pumped her stomach and did all of that. But it's like my mom and dad both kind of spiraled out of control at that point after my little brother died. So several years of abuse, and I remember sitting at the kitchen table and my dad getting up and throwing chairs and breaking the television, and that it would get to the point where the abuse would be so bad that my mom would send us all outside and lock the door, and we were not allowed to come back in until she called us. And I was the oldest, and I grew up really fast and had to be the mature one because everything around me was so out of control. And I started developing a fearful spirit. Everything. I was afraid of everything, you know, but I kept it all inside, and I was trying my best to hold it all together and hold myself together and be supportive for my mom. I remember talking about, well, we were laying on the floor, and I don't know where my little brothers were, but we were laying on the floor. You remember those old console TVs, where the TV was in the middle, and then you had the stereo on one side, you had the record player on the other, you know, and you shut the doors to cover the TV. So her and I were laying on the floor, all the lights were out, my mom smoked cigarettes, and all I could see was the light from her cigarette. I remember such a thing, I don't know, but the light from her cigarette, and the little light on the console stereo, we were listening to the Supremes. And I just remember that memory, it just, like it was yesterday. And so every time the Supremes come on, I just love it. But she talked to me as though I were an adult. And she said, you know, how would you feel if we left your dad? Now this was after 10 years, almost 10 years of marriage. My dad would go away for weeks at a time. Nobody knew where he was, what he was doing. Then he'd come home and he'd talk about all the women he'd been with. As he was with my mom, he would talk about, you know, all the drugs and alcohol and all the stuff he would do. So my dad just went off the rails. So my mom asked me, you know, how would you feel if we left? I was like, yes, please, let's do that. I mean, I was all for it. So not my grandmother knew about all the abuse, but well, she knew the abuse, but I don't think that she knew the extent of it. But my dad had told my mom that if you ever leave me, if you ever even think about leaving me, I will either disfigure your face or I will kill you. And she was very pretty, and I think that she stayed with him. And I've since then I've watched so many documentaries, and I've studied, and my major in college was psychology because I wanted to understand. You know, when God removed the anger and all of that against my dad, he left me with compassion, you know, which to me was such a gift because my brothers didn't have that same feeling. You know, I have a drawing in my house of my mom and dad that my brother-in-law did, and my brother's like, why would you have that in your house? Why would you have a picture of daddy in your house? And I'm like, because he's my father, you know, and he was broken, but we're all broken in some way, you know, and so for me, when God took away my anger and my hurt, it was more about how can I understand him? How can I make sense of the senseless, you know? So I was all for leaving, and my mom was very fearful, very afraid. You know, the stories about why do women stay with a batterer. There's a lot of complications that go into why people stay. And I was angry at my mom for a long time because I'm a strong person in certain ways, yet I don't feel strong to handle all the things that have happened, but it's God, but I'm stubborn, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm stubborn, and so I know that she was that same way. And my grandmother, oh my gosh, she was on steroids and stubbornness, you know, so I didn't understand, why would you stay? Why would you put up with that? And I don't know if you've ever seen the Burning Man. I watched that and sobbed through the entire thing, but God let me see that because it opened up thoughts in my head like, okay, that makes sense. Because they twist things, you know, the batterer, the narcissist, they twist things to make it look like you're the bad one. If you just had done this, if you didn't make me angry, if you didn't, so all these things. So after seeing that, I had a whole new appreciation for my mom and all the things she'd gone through. So to kind of wrap up this situation, because I don't want to dwell too much on the battery part, because we're here to talk about God's goodness, where he's brought me. So we left my dad. I was in 3rd grade. Picture, I think it was yesterday. My mom and my grandmother pulled up to school to pick me up. And I came out to the car, and my mom had thrown everything that she could possibly fit it in the back of our car, just threw it in the back seat and picked me up. So we went to Nana's, and I was so happy because it was like, peace, you know, and so it was me, my mom, my brother, Tom, who was 2 years younger than me, so I was 9, Tommy was 7, and then my baby brother was 1 year old, 1 year old. So we left my dad, and my mom and I and Terry, the baby, stayed in one bedroom, and then Tommy had a bedroom by himself. So one night my dad called and he said, I want to come over and get my fishing poles out of your trunk. And she had, for whatever reason, she had his fishing poles in his trunk. It was just an excuse to come to the house. So she said, yeah, you can come over. So I had gone to bed, they had the door shut, I'm in the bedroom with the baby, and then Tommy's down the hall. And my dad came to the door, knocked on the door, and my mom knew it was my dad, so she went to get the car keys, and Nana opened up the door and saw that my dad had his shotgun with him. So I won't go into too much detail other than my dad proceeded to, he shot a hole in the ceiling by accident, and then my grandma and my grandpa took off running through the hallway, and Nana came in my bedroom, and she wasn't making any sense. We had a dog named Gidget, Hulu, and she's like, Gidget shot your mom, and I mean, she said nothing about my dad, and she just, you know, and I heard the shot, I had woken up, and so anyway, she wasn't making any sense. And then she climbs in the closet and shuts the door. So I'm in the bedroom by myself, and I'm thinking, what in the world is going on? So then I hear another shot, and then I hear another shot. So evidently, after he shot that first one, he shot my mom right through the heart, right through the ear, and then everybody was out of the room by that point. But my grandpa, when he came back in later, my dad evidently had kind of come to his senses somewhat. Saw what he had done, and so he put it on the floor and cocked it and just kind of shot this whole side of his head off, and then fell over into my brother's playpen. Sorry, I know it's, but we're getting to the point where it's
Amen.
the good, the amazing of what God has done. So that started the feud kind of between my dad's side of the family and my mom's side of the family. Nana, my grandmother, was my mom's mom. Nana decided that she was going to take all 3 of us in to take care of us. She didn't want to split us up, didn't want us in foster homes, didn't want us with other members of the family, because other family members had stepped up and said, we'll take this one, we'll take this one, you know, but she didn't want to break us up, which I commend her for that thought, you know. So we went and started living with Nana, and Nana had just lost her grandson, she had just lost her daughter, and a year after she took us all 3 in, I was laying in bed, and I'm a very light sleeper. I think it was from all the abuse. I'm always on alert, you know, the fearful spirit really had so much control over me, and he has removed that fearful spirit.
Praise God.
He has removed it. So I'm laying in bed, and I kept hearing this noise, and I'm thinking, what in the world is that noise? So I get up, and my grandpa, he was my step-grandpa, but I considered him my grandpa. And I found out later that he was actually 10 years younger than my grandma, but my grandma lied. So nobody knew exactly how old Nana was. Nana was not your typical grandmother. Nana was a young grandma anyway, but she wore the hot pants, the cat leather boots, you know, the big hair, you know. She had more dates than I did on the weekends, and that's not a lie. On the weekends, I'd be home watching Lawrence Welk, and she's out on her dates, you know. So that was my desire when I was a kid, by the way. I wanted to be on the Lawrence Welk show. I was not your normal teenager, but I was being raised by my grandmother, so, you know, that big band music and all that was my thing. And everybody else listened to Led Zeppelin and the, you know, whatever. So, anyway, where was I?
You heard a noise.
Yeah, I heard a noise, and my grandpa was a jokester. He was very I just adored him. He was so good to us, and he took us in like we were his children, and I just loved him dearly. So I came out in the living room, and they had gone out dancing. They like to jitterbug, do all that, and they were wonderful dancers. And I came out, and he was laying on the couch, and he was laying kind of cockeyed, weird, and I'm thinking, what is he doing? But I thought he was playing around. I thought he was teasing me, you know. So anyway, to make a long story short, he had already passed away of hardening of the arteries and a blood clot that hit his head, hit his brain. And what I was hearing was the death rattle, the fluids in the body, and he was 41. 41. Which didn't make sense to me as I got older. I'm thinking, how did I have a grandfather at 41? But it makes sense when I think about Nana lying in so, that started the extreme spiral of my grandmother. My grandmother ended up becoming an alcoholic. And the trauma that I even received more from Nana, I think was even more so than my parents, I think, just because it was just a lot of things happened. So she couldn't handle all three of us. So my one brother and the brother that's right under me, because I'm the oldest, he looked just like my dad and acted just like my dad. The temper, the rage, so my grandmother, every time she looked at my brother, and it wasn't even his fault, she looks at him and she sees my dad. And so he would, every time he'd get in trouble, she'd lock him in the basement. So he lived in the basement, and every time she'd go away, sneak him upstairs and let him stay up and watch TV, and then as soon as we hear the car, sneaking back downstairs, so there was a lot of brokenness on his part. The baby brother, my 1-year-old, he doesn't feel connected to anybody, to any family. I mean, he does to me now, but he didn't know my mom and dad, he didn't know our relatives, he didn't know anything. He's only a year old, and so he has his own set of issues. But what I saw from my brothers, them both going a different way than I did, was the anger, resentment, hurt, blame, all those things. Why me? Why, and God removed that from me. And that was one of the biggest things that I saw early on was, and I can only, and I didn't even know what I was asking for when I started having a relationship with God. I didn't know to even ask for those things, but He miraculously took those things away from me and gave me joy. So that's why I'm talking about this today, because there's been more tragedy since then, but I have to tell you that if I close my eyes and I think about my life compared to my brother's life, it is such a beautiful picture of God's witness. Because if you choose joy, regardless of the circumstances, God will bring you through it. So, Mark and I got married, had 3 children. Oh, skipped a big, huge part. So, God's goodness. So, my one brother's put in a foster home. My other brother's been put in military school. And then he jumps around from military to foster home, foster home, foster home. So, we did not grow up together at all. And about a year and a half after my parents died, I'm being raised by a very worldly woman who is very broken. We had a built-in keg in our family room.
A built-in what?
Keg.
Keggers.
And we had a built-in pool, so every weekend was a reason to party, and so Nana's drinking and partying and dating and like I said, more dates than I had, and she just lived a wild life, just a wild, and that was her answer, to how to get through the pain. And I just saw, okay, that's not working. I was looking for something else. So about a year and a half after all this went down, my best friend and I at the time were sitting on my front porch, and we found out that somebody's moving in across the street. So we're sitting on the front porch thinking, I wonder if they have a boy, if they have a son. So we see this station wagon pull up, and they've got 5 children and a collie in the station. We're all of them packed in the back of that station wagon. And to make another long story short, it was my husband. God put the Evans family across the street. I mean, I could throw a rock and hit their house. That's how close it was. So, Mark's mom, wonderful. The one I was telling you about, they could run circles around me. She became my mom. And she would have talks with me about how Christian women, young ladies should act and how they should dress, and maybe not wear the short shorts around my son, Anyway, and she became the mother that I didn't have, and I've given talks before, and I just talk about how what Satan meant for just destruction, God gave me more than I could have ever asked for. I mean, just, thank you, Steve. Gave me so much, because had my mom and dad lived, my life would have been so different. And God used this event and many events in my life to bring me, one, to a saving knowledge of Him, but walk me through so many things that I and Shelby became like my mother and father-in-law, or my mother and father. And, we didn't get married until I ended up, I went to Liberty University, to college, a short time. Then, just to get away, because I didn't know what else to do with my life, I joined the Army. That's a whole other story. We won't go into that. But it was out of desperation, like, okay, what can I do? You know, because I was so broken, still, even though I knew the Lord, and the Lord was working on me, inwardly, I had so much fear. And I had so much, my feeling at that time was that everybody is gonna leave me. Everybody is going to desert me or leave me by myself. And I'm, you know, I just, that sense of loneliness, that sense of emptiness, that sense of fear. And I used to have to sleep with the lights on, and a lot of times I would wait until the birds started singing in the morning. Why that made a difference, I don't know, but when I would hear the birds singing before it was even daylight, then I could go to sleep. Who knows why? Always had to have the door locked, always had to sleep on the side of the bed that was farthest away from the door, and I did that well into our marriage.
Yeah, but the worst things that happen to you is when you're trying to go to, you're in your bedroom.
Right.
And then you get your mother shot and your grandpa dies, I can see why.
But that's what's amazing is because without counseling and all those things, God has removed that. You know, He has removed those fears. It's amazing to me. So I went to college, went to the Army, came back, and Mark, I finally said yes. He asked me when I was 18 and I wasn't quite ready. So I was 20 and he was 42 when we got married. So, been all over the country. Mark and I were in the restaurant business our first 10 years or so of marriage, and moved around from different city to city, and we lived in California, Arizona, Montana, just all over the place. And then God eventually brought us back to Ohio, so we raised our kids in the same town where his mom and dad lived, which was wonderful because my kids got to grow up with their grandparents, their loving Christian grandparents, and so we raised our children in a Christian home, you know, much to their dismay, you know, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, you know. And so my children were raised in a Christian home, but far from perfect. You know, who knows why children that are raised in the same home can make different decisions in life. My youngest daughter, you know, chose one way. My other two chose a very destructive path. My two oldest, which is ironic that the two oldest that got very involved in drugs, alcohol, just living for themselves, even though they both had professed Christ, had gotten saved, had been all through Awana, you know, had learned the verses, had done everything that we were told as parents to do for our children. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. You know, I'm thinking, Lord, I've done everything I know to do, you know, with these children, and they still are making these choices. And so, my daughter, and this has been about, I guess about 10 years ago, we were at our wit's end with her. And we ended up sending her to Arizona, and it was a year-long program called Teen Challenge. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Oh, yes, I'm Assembly of God, so I.
Okay, so you've heard of it. So we sent her to Teen Challenge, and she had just had my granddaughter. Actually, it hasn't been 10. Well, I guess it has, because Marty is going to be, yeah, so it's been a little bit longer than that. So my granddaughter was only a year old. I was heartbroken, because it was my first grandbaby, and they were going to Arizona, and it was for mothers with baby, that particular location for Teen Challenge. And they were going to be there for a whole year. And we couldn't visit, we couldn't have anything to do with them for that year.
Is that Amber?
Amber. Amber was
That's why she's at Sandy's.
That's exactly right, yeah. So she goes to Teen Challenge and takes her granddaughter and comes back, and it's absolutely amazing. Now, she's had lots of trauma in her life, just all kinds of things I can't even go into, because it's not my story to tell necessarily, but her testimony is phenomenal and what God has done in her life. And so she let God do what he does best. My son, on the other hand, just wasn't getting it. So we did the same thing with Ryan. We sent Ryan for a year to Arizona. And he wrote me letters. I do believe that Ryan got saved and came to, you know, saving knowledge of Jesus Christ when he was there in Arizona. But Ryan's addiction was much more severe. So, 2 years ago, we got the call that Ryan had passed away in Fort Lauderdale. He had gone through his umpteenth rehabilitation type place. Was doing phenomenally well. I don't know if you've ever heard of the app called Marco Polo, but it's a video app. I absolutely love it, and I really believe God gave that to me as a gift because my youngest daughter had introduced us to this app a couple years prior. So I have all these videos of Ryan. And Ryan, I think he enjoyed seeing himself on the video. So he sent me so many videos, and he sent Mama, my husband's mom, so many videos just talking about his relationship with God and talking about how he was working on this and working on this and working on this. And I'm going to do this, Mama, and I'm going to, Mom, I'm just so excited about what God is doing. I mean, just one thing after another. I don't know what happened. I don't know where the moment of weakness came. I really don't. Because he had graduated with honors. He had done really, really well. He had gone through the halfway house, and he was actually in an apartment by himself.
Sometimes it's a pain that it never stops. Satan is so deceptive, but sometimes it's just so much pain because it never stops. And
You get tired.
you can't, it's a point you can't fight it anymore. But God's right there.
Yes.
He's right there. He's talking to you right to, I know that. He talks to you right to the very end, and you can make a decision even then. Even then, you can say, okay, Jesus,
Yes.
okay.
I do believe my daughter struggled with it the most. I think that was the hardest part for her, more so than even losing him, was the idea, is he in heaven? And so she prayed specifically that God would give us confirmation. Oh my, I can't tell you.
I know he is.
The amount of things that God gave us. So my daughter, my youngest daughter, she had a blanket made for me. And this whole blanket is a letter that Ryan sent to me. It's the actual letter printed on this blanket, and it says on there about, Mom, it was the first time in my life when I got it. And he talks about how I wept and I asked God to come into my heart. I mean, the whole letter about him saved. I didn't even know I had that letter. I didn't even know I had that letter, and I found it in some old stuff that I had. I had forgotten completely that he sent me that letter. But when my daughter Amber was asking for confirmation, I said, Amber, you would not believe what I found. And I read this, we sobbed, and then my youngest put that on the blanket. It's just, how good is God? And he cares even about giving us confirmation. He didn't have to give me confirmation, you know? And so, I do believe that Ryan is in heaven. And every time, and this is something that, you know, if you all ever struggle with things, maybe this will help you like it has helped me and helped my daughter. Every time I feel like Satan is trying to get the better of me. And you don't have 34 years. Ryan was 34. He was born on Mother's Day and then he died on Mother's Day. He was supposed to come for the weekend. It was his birthday weekend. I had made him cake. We had gotten his birthday gift, and he was coming in for a whole week actually. And he never made it for that weekend. So what was I going?
It was one fentanyl.
Yeah. Yes, it was fentanyl. It was fentanyl. So
And that stuff is.
yeah, it's a whole new ballgame with that stuff. So, I forget where I was going with the
Confirmation of God.
yes, the confirmation, because I knew that he was searching, you know, all these years he's been searching. But that letter, not even knowing that I had that letter, to me was confirmation. And you know, just that God would allow us to see, you know, I know where I started to go. Sorry, I go off on these rabbit trails with my brain. Oh, that's a whole nother subject. I found out that I had MS, and I was put on disability in 2016 from one of the jobs that I loved. I absolutely loved this job, and I traveled, and I had a lot of responsibility. It was one of the top 100 consulting firms in the world, in the whole world, and I felt very honored to be there. Felt very useful and all those things, and God had other plans for me, and that was right before all this went down, and I was put on disability. I'm just not, I just acted, and being home for the
The
first
more
time.
you do it, the better you get at it.
I just need to work harder, okay. So God was already working on me and working on my, depending on Him. So, anyway, again, I would where I was going with this.
Confirmation.
Yes.
God is so good to you. What did she say? What did she say? God is so good to let you see.
Well, anyway, I see this is what, and that's the way my MS brain works a lot of times where it misfires, but to look back on where God was leading us, we moved to this area and got involved with Northside. And we were just brand new at Northside, fairly, and didn't a whole lot of people, but we had already gotten involved in the small group, the Sunday school group. And so Ryan died, and then that very Sunday, I'm like, I have to be at church. I felt like I couldn't stay at home and just suffocate, because I felt very suffocated in the house. So we went to church, and this one, we had just started the Sunday school group, and we didn't know each other, and she came up to me and she said, are you Tina Evans? I forget how you said it exactly, but you were pretty blunt about like, someone said that you were here, and I couldn't believe that you were here, because didn't you just lose your son? So, and then you called me when I'm in Colorado. I was visiting my friend in Colorado, and you were struggling with something. And I remember feeling so inadequate that you would call me for Christian advice, but I also felt very honored that God would use me, because I know myself, and I know, if she only knew all the things that I struggle with, but I felt that was something that I thought, okay, God, I'm going to get through this about Ron, I'm going to get through it, but if you can use this, if you can use me, if you can use a broken me, I'm in. And so, the first few days after losing Ryan, I remember I was so distraught. The feeling of utter despair was overtaking me. And I remember walking outside barefoot with, just shorts on and a t-shirt and walking on the dirt road. We live off 2 dirt roads out in the boonies. You've been there. Back and forth, back and forth. My neighbors, I'm sure, thought I lost my mind. Back and forth, probably 6 miles, just screaming at God. You've got it wrong. I can't do this. You have given me more than I can handle. And I was always taught that He's not going to give us more than we can handle. And, I'm just screaming out to God. Not trying to be disrespectful, but I was like, God, I can't handle this. I'm a Christian and I can't handle this. So we had a few, and at that time, Mark and I were living by ourselves. My kids had not moved in yet, and I didn't want to cry in front of him. I didn't want to lose it in front of him, because his biggest fear with my kids and their drug use was that I was going to lose a child, and him knowing my past, him thinking I'll never recover. And so he thought he was going to lose his wife, and that was a big fear for him. I'm going to lose my wife. And so I didn't want to cry in front of him, because I didn't want to add more stress to him. And so every time he would leave, then I would cry, then I would, So I'm screaming out to God, and I'm just saying, God, you've got it all wrong. I can't do it. And so I went upstairs in our bedroom, and I had a futon couch in there. And I got down on my knees, and I put my elbows on there, and I just sobbed, and I sobbed, and it wasn't even verbal talking as much as it was just sobbing to God. And I finally asked him, God, you need to remove this despair. I'm ashamed to have this much despair, knowing where I'm going, and knowing what you have in store for me, and knowing that my son is in heaven. I just should not be at this point with the despair. And when I got up from that futon, the despair is gone. I still cry. I still have my days where I'm thinking, and I'll even yell at Ryan, the day that I got his ashes in the mail. I get a UPS box. It seems so surreal. Mark was gone on a sales appointment. He travels a lot with sales, and I'm home by myself. So I get this UPS box, and I set it on the table, and I knew what it was. And so I took some pictures of it. And as I'm opening up the box, I'm sobbing and laughing at the same time, because this box comes with a little funnel. And I'm thinking, okay, and I had bought these little urns that I was going to give to my daughters and to whoever wanted one. So I'm taking the ice cream scooper. I'm sifting it through this funnel into these little urns, and I'm laughing hysterically because I'm thinking Ryan, with his ornery sense of humor, he would be laughing that I'm using the ice cream scooper to put those in there. And I'm yelling at Ryan at the same time, Ryan, you are trying to kill your mother. You are absolutely trying to kill your mother. But even in that, God was working through my pain because I was yelling and I was getting it out. And I was talking to my son, and I was talking to God, and not holding it in. And I think that, for me personally, that was helping me work through all of that pain. So, since then, after we removed that deep, deep despair, and I saw it so vividly. I mean, because I was living it, I saw it so vividly that I thought, God, I want to use that. I want to use my testimony. I want you to use me, even though I am not a speaker. I am not, I've never, at that point, I had never done a devotion, led a devotion in my life. I don't speak to groups. I don't do all those things, but God, I will speak, and I will let, use me, whatever you want me to do. And I can't tell you how many opportunities He has given me to speak, even if it's a small group or a larger group. I've just been amazed, and what you don't realize, what I don't realize, and all of us, we don't realize what other people are going through. On Facebook, everything looks so rosy, and our families look all rosy, and everything looks like, oh, we see her on Sunday morning, and she looks great, and she's smiling, and we have no idea what people have been through, the hurts that they have. And so even though I consider myself to be weak in a lot of areas, I still want God to use me, and I know, and people will say, oh, you're so strong, and I couldn't do this, and I didn't think I could either. I really didn't. In those first few days, I would have told you that I can't do it, so God, but God, I love that statement, but God. So back to my title of choosing joy. The road is not easy. My road has not been easy, and I'm sure that other things are going to happen. And I'm praying every day, God, give me the strength to go through whatever it is you have for me, in the next 20, 25, 30, whatever years I've got left, if that. Give me the strength to walk through it like you did with Ryan. Give me that strength, because it sure doesn't make any sense that I'm okay. It's been two Mother's Day ago that we lost him, and I'm still amazed every day that I'm okay, and that I'm standing, and that our family's okay, that my marriage is okay, because so many marriages, just can't handle that pain. But God is good. God is good. So I think we'll go to this. I love this by Lisa TerKeurst, Rest and Reassurance. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. We all have those times we wish the voice of God would audibly speak so loudly that there's no way you can miss it. This is the direction I want you to go. Then we know whether to stay the course or head in a new direction. Have you ever wished for that kind of certainty? I have. Most of us want to know what to do. Without that confidence, sometimes we stay in a place too long, which is where I think that my brothers, why this resonated with me, is that I think that so many people, they blame God, and they stay in a place of brokenness so much longer than they need to because they're not willing to let go of that anger and that hurt. And how could you, I'm a Christian, how could you do this to me? How could you allow this in my life? But the way I looked at it was, why not me? I'm just a human being like anybody else on this planet, and we all have hurt, we all go through pain, we all go through tragedy. Why not me? Why would I be above anybody else? But hanging on to that anger, I don't want to be in that position. Most of us want to know what to do. Without that confidence, sometimes we stay in a place too long, but the greater loss happens in those times we quit too soon. Then we can live with this nagging sense of what if? What if I persevered one more year, one more month, one more day? Knowing when to stop and when to keep on going is a crucial life lesson, one I want to learn well. passion and rest. In Matthew 11:28, Jesus encourages us, "Come to me, all who are wearied and burdened, and I will give you rest." I used to get so frustrated with this verse because I thought, I don't want rest, I just want reassurance. I'm burdened by this decision I have to make. I don't want to mess up by missing a cue from God. But the rest Jesus offers is not a spiritual sleep aid. The Greek word for this kind of rest is anapao, which has, I had to look that word up by the way, and have it tell me how to say it. Anapao, which has as one of its definitions of calm and patient expectation. In other words, Jesus is saying, if you come to me, I will take your exhaustion and your uncertainty and turn it into a calm expectation. And I think that is one of the things that I wanted to stress the most today, is that I had a choice to make. Do I turn it over to God, or do I walk up? And there's nothing wrong with having moments of sorrow, but where do you go from there? Do you stay in there? Do you stay in that wallowing? And how many people do you meet and run into that just wallow in their sorrow and their pain and their trials and all those things? I don't want that for my life. I really don't. And God has already been working on me in that area. My friend Jennifer Rothschild does this enlightening exercise at some of her conferences. She tells the audience to imagine her writing two different words on a large chalkboard. Then she speaks the letters as she draws the first word in the air, rest, R-E-S-T. She does the same for the second word, resist, R-E-S-I-S-T. Then she asks, what is the difference? The difference, of course, is the word I don't know what to do. I can't figure this out. I'm worn out. I've tried everything I know to do. I've given all I can give. I'm familiar with these I statements because I've said them myself. We can only find anapao rest, fresh hope, as we stop running ragged and simply take on the next assignment Jesus gives. In verse 29 of Matthew 11, Jesus gives us the assignment to take on his yoke and learn from him. Ask Jesus to show you how to rest in him. It might mean sitting quietly. It might mean asking others to join you in prayer, or cleaning your calendar to read the word. Once you're still, take the next step. Not 10 steps, not the whole path, not the Google map with the highlighted route, just the next step. You'll know it because it'll be in line with God's character and his word. And I think that that's where I'm at. That each new day is a new step, and God, where are you going to take me? And how much are you going to use this testimony, to help others? This is your part of the equation. But after the assignment comes the reassurance in verse 30, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. We don't have to have all the answers. We just have to stay connected to the one who does have all the answers. Where our strength ends is the exact point where his will begins. This is God's part of the equation. I must do all I can do, then trust God will do what only he can do. Should I stay? Should I go? Maybe the better question is, God, what is the next step I need to take? I'm going to do my part and trust you for the rest. Dear Lord, I am tired and I can't figure things out. Please help me to see your part in this equation. Where my strength ends is where your will begins. Help me, Lord, to look to you for my very next step. I will wait in calm expectation. So I just thought that was something that really, I can give you verses on, what the Bible has so many verses on grief and, what, thank you.
I'm going to say one thing.
Yes.
Something I didn't do, God would always tell me to write down my story, write down things as they happen. I don't know if you're doing this or not, but your story is extreme tragedies. I would write down, you never know, I never thought God would ever call me to write a book. I always share my testimony with my, I just think that you should write it down because I just believe that God's going to use you more than just speaking someday. So.
Well, I appreciate that, and I will definitely, I will do that. I will do that.
And okay, okay, I gotta remember back, you know?
right.
But right from
It would even make a good movie, better than Northern Lights.
I was saying that, but I didn't want to say it.
I mean, it almost seems like so much, I mean, we all have tragedies.
Yeah. that
We all
were over.
have periods of tragedy, but so many that happened to you. And you're right, because it is evidence of God. Because most people would just,
Well, you can even do the movie based on the perspectives that you were, as that child,
yeah,
as that young person, as that adult, and then your perspectives changing around with those situations.
It's really interesting, and I learned that when I have foster teenagers, when we do that with their stories, is even though they came from all different tragedies in their lives or things, some of them were just spoiled beyond, that they were abused in the way that they were physically or emotionally abused, but the overabundance in their life, it's just funny, it takes them all the same direction in some way, is that it ends up making them feel like I'm worthless, I'm just, they want to go out and destroy themselves. I mean, they don't think that, they don't think they're doing that, but that's because they think they're worthless, they do that.
I heard, and I forget how it was worded exactly, but we are all created with this God-sized hole in our heart.
Exactly.
And everything that they look for, my daughter and my son, to fill that is never going to be enough. It's never going to be right. And the money, if they're spoiled and they have everything,
Right, exactly.
it's never going to fill that. How many wealthy people take their life?
Right.
So, yes, I believe that.
Well, and I just think too, there are people out there that have thought to themselves, I have, and been through similar things to you, I think I'm thinking in their own heart, I can't make it, I can't do this.
That's right.
And there's gonna be a new generation coming up here. God's gonna pour out His Spirit, and all what He's doing all over the world, but there's gonna be a new generation who's going to come up, that's going to hear testimonies from our generation, your generation, for them,
Yes.
so they can survive through because what's coming is worse than ever what we were
But it's also exciting.
Yeah, it is.
I read about her reading about herself, but she's.
Love you, I enjoyed it,
Thank you.
and
Thank you so
I'm
much.
gonna keep in mind with my daughters, and see if we can't come someplace that you're giving your testimony.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, thank you, bye-bye.
So, that's basically what I have for today. I don't know how well I did on time. I'm so.
That's great, yeah.
I,
We're
uh,
on 12.
I'm glad you guys came, and I just, that's all I had to say. Any questions? I'm amazed every day, even Michelle with you, I told Mark, after we dropped you off the other night, I got a little choked up because, when you called me, and I was in Colorado visiting a friend, and I didn't know you, and you were talking to me, and you were asking me, Christian advice and stuff, and I just felt like what I imagined Noah or whoever was used of God in the not that I compared myself to Noah by any means, but going through all the things they did, and I'm thinking, God, I am not sufficient for this. I am not. That is not my thing. Like when I signed up, we had this.
But you don't have to be, I mean, people do the same thing with me, since I do teaching online different things, and I'm very outspoken. I get a lot of private messages and prayer requests, and I'm not like, I don't know the answers. Some of this stuff is so far beyond me, or I just don't relate to that kind of problem or whatever, but God is.
That's right. That's right.
And so I don't really have to worry about it. They say, will you pray for me or whatever, then I can go to God with it. And if somebody's talking to me, I'm not saying this out loud, but in my mind I'm saying, Holy Spirit, say what needs to be said.
Yes.
Because I don't
Yes.
know.
Yes.
And, that's the ones He can use. Those of us who know, we can't. And Paul, you reminded me of Paul when he said, and I'm not coming to you with educated, fancy words. I'm not anybody.
Right, that's right.
But I have God in me, is what he was saying, you know. And he didn't have it all together either. I mean, he had something,
He's in prison.
there was something he dealt with, and he was like, Lord, you were saying when you were screaming, you've got the wrong person, I can't do this. And Paul was like, look, there's this thorn that you've got to remove from me. Which I learned when I was getting my master's in biblical studies. People think it was a physical ailment. It actually was not. He was everywhere he went. He was harassed and heckled. Everywhere I'm just trying to teach these people, and I'm trying to minister, and all these people keep coming. Lord, get it out of the way. I can't deal with that. I don't know how to handle it. And the Lord's saying, my grace is sufficient. Okay? So, and he does give us stuff we can't handle. That's why people kill themselves. But he can handle it. He's like, that's right, you can't handle it. Give it to me. You know, so we can't save ourselves, we can't handle it. And if we do try to handle it without him, we just make a big mess.
What was that?
My necklace.
Your necklace? Is it your necklace?
This,
The bracelet just fell
the
apart.
braid, yeah.
Oh, I've had that happen before.
That's okay, let's continue with the, more important one.
But anyway, I want us to remember to pray for Tina, because like you said, God has done a lot, but I know the enemy too. Still sometimes probably comes to you and tries to make you think, well, what did I do wrong?
There's obviously those
And the
levels.
pain and the grief and things like that come. I mean, I've been saved, you know, but does this happen to anybody else? Do you ever lay down at night and have like the past torments you still?
And it's the generational stuff. It's the generational mental, and I've been thinking about, I need to get my testimony. You know, not that I have done, or been through
Well, everybody's got
anything.
their own story.
Yeah.
Right. You have a story.
Mine is the generational mental illness, that goes back, and it's that, look, when I did to my kids, I passed that on. And I know that's the devil, like we were talking about, being laid down, because I honestly know that I've walked that better way, my kids know the better way. They've chosen not, my dad has overcome his stuff. I mean, so it's when it's the hardest is when it is the quiet place, when it
You
is,
beat yourself up.
yeah,
And God is
yeah.
not beating
Most of the time I'm okay,
Yeah.
but there's times that, that I've just been hit over the head one too many times.
I mean, you go through that, even as a parent, I thought, what did I do, or what did I
Exactly.
do properly that caused my children to
Exactly.
go that route?
Yeah,
You
I've
know?
heard the same thing.
And then, of course, as they're going through it, they blame us, well, you just guys are all so religious, and it's always,
You can't win.
That's right, that's right. That'd have been a terrible, like, if I'd have been like Donna, you can't win, you just can't. So,
Right.
and it's Satan's battlefield, and that's what he's doing.
But it's amazing. You do have an amazing story. It's God's story, told through you, written for you, and I do think what she said is right. You need to maybe start working on writing. And you could get her book. It's $15, but if you don't think that, that's okay. You can read it and that. But it's nothing super fancy. But I couldn't put it down. Maybe because I knew her in person, I had met her. I was very curious.
I think that's why testimonies help, because
It's just amazing the twists and turns everybody's life takes. And it's fascinating to look inside when someone opens up and lets you see. Because you meet them, like you said, they look so put together and everything. And there are times like it's like when I'm sitting in church, that's the last place I really want to be, but you're not going to know that. But there's times when I'm just sitting there like, something is bothering me so bad, or I'm hurting inside, or I'm feeling guilty, or whatever, and I'm just like, I'm just going through motions, I'm just here, you know, and, but that's,
Were you there, was it Wednesday night?
yeah,
When, I think his name is Hope.
Will, it was very good.
So good, but he was just talking about, we all have those ride-ins.
Yeah,
We all have
and I'm
those.
there, I'm kind of in a dry place, so when he said that, and I had even shared that Sunday morning in Sunday school, I'm like, I'm just kind of in this dry place, I don't feel close to God, I don't feel
See,
far from
mine's
God.
been
It's just
anger.
kind of-
Ugh.
You feel angry at God?
Oh, God, no, just angry. But I know my triggers is, my anger normally is the beginning of my valleys. So I am super aware of, and I keep saying, I don't wanna be, I don't wanna be angry, but I'm just so angry.
About what?
Anything, everything.
Is it hormonal? Mine can be hormonal.
I get like that, there's some days that I just wake up and everything gets on my nerves, everything.
I think as women, we are,
We're
notorious
really
for
like
that.
that, but anyway, I just, whenever, if y'all wanna sit talking, I'm gonna have to go in there, my son will be here in a minute, I don't know,
That's
say,
okay.
oh, you just left on the
Yeah.
water lady here.
I'll close this in prayer real quick and, Heavenly Father.
Excuse me.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You go. Oh, I'm sorry, this interrupt, one thing is, what you've gone through, and you know, is very, very, has been very hard. Because I think that the worst thing a mother, maybe a father, could be hurt is losing a child. I don't think there's nothing, not even the husband or family, we say my mother and the father, but the child, it's son or daughter. So you have been going through it. But the good thing is that I have brought you. And as they said, there is something for you. They already said it, that you have to do. You have to put that, because that is the main testimony is going to impact, God permitted you to go through that.
Great way to look at it. He
Yes.
permitted me, he gave me that.
Yeah, He permitted.
It's hard to think of it that way when we're going through it, but.
If it didn't, He could do anything or whatever, but He permitted it,
Wow.
because He's the creator, He's the power of everything. And in His permission is for you now to continue going through what that's a step, a step upper for your ministry. So it's something He has given you, and what you're doing is go to God more for all of us. We have all struggles, we have all situations, but God is in control. You say God is in control. Sometimes we can, and we may go, for a little while, maybe one day in church, maybe one day, but us as Christians will turn that over because we know who we go to. And we will rejoice in His word, singing, and in that, you said in the, what you get sometimes,
Oh, the anger.
that anger, it's not from God.
Right, I know, that's what I'm like, I don't know what
And you know how to vencerla, how to overcome it, So what you need is the strength. And the word
Sometimes
said,
we forget our identity.
oh, sometimes we
Stand up and go,
we
wait
are-
a minute, I don't have to agree with this, not for 1 second.
Tapping into that power, I told my Amber that because Amber struggles so badly. My daughter has anxiety, really bad anxiety issues and OCD. It's a mess. Anyway, tapping in, we have no idea how much power we have to tap into. We don't use it, we don't utilize it. Even myself, and I'm just now learning. Oh wow, this works, this works, because I've seen it in my own life. So I'm just as amazed as everybody else because it's like, if you truly knew Tina, you would realize how wimpy I
English is not good,
That's
my
okay.
husband is worse, but God lives there, and He doesn't really have to know the words, you know the spirit.
That's right.
And, well, anyway, since I'm going to, not to our son's house, getting us a house near him, he already got a good stuff for that, but God is in control, you know?
That works out all
And,
details.
you know, I was about that. So, we have 3 grandsons already grown, they speak English, not Spanish. But when you talk about that, came to my mind, oh God, well, that's how I can reach to them. And we're going to read like 7 beautiful minutes, so I said, how do you do that? You do it like once, that comes in the book, it comes like monthly or,
This book here?
yeah, that you said it's like a prayer, you say something, teach something.
These are all, like, little chapters, so the chapter, each chapter is only like two or 3 pages, so that's all there is. And then you go to the next one, and the next one, and next one.
So once a week.
You can do it,
Once a week, once a day.
yeah, whatever you wanna
Yeah.
do, however you wanna do it. Now, when we did it for our shop Bible study, we do one a month, and then I would teach it, which I had never taught before, and I said, okay, God, I'll do it, and I was scared to death,
Dottie does have some great little devotions. There's one that's, there's one for women and there's one for men, but it's a daily devotion thing, so yeah.
So what was your thought on this?
And
For
I
her
wanted to know
grandsons?
about that because I'm going, God willing, I'm going to do that with my 3
Grandsons.
grandsons. They're already, they're not married, but they're.
Her little videos.
And I want to then, I taught them, when they were born, I teach them all of it. And when they was born about God, I mean, when they went to sleep, went to the bow, pray, but then we moved to another place. But they got in, they got God.
Good.
Trusting, praying,
Good, good.
believing, faith.
Good.
But that I want to say, God, you're going to put us there, and they're young, so they need to be steady in the word, so
Yeah.
I need something
Yeah.
to teach them. So I think I'm going to get one of that, and I don't think, they're young, and they're not going to listen to me. Like, but at least if I could get once a month,
Yeah.
depends how God will move.
Yeah.
Something short,
Yes.
that, because they get
Yeah.
tired,
Yeah, go look over there, and even if you have to feed them, they're guys, they're gonna wanna
Yeah, give them
eat.
food, give them food.
Yeah, yes, come,
If you feed them, they will come.
come eat with me, and then before or after you eat, they're satisfied, they're full.
There's
Let me
100.
read something to you, and you read it, and you know, that would be perfect.
Do you wanna take a picture of this? You have your phone? There's 100 devotions in here, 100. So it's,
I don't know how to use it very well, so I'm learning.
let me turn my
And then
camera
there's
off.
some that are like, directed towards guys.
Towards men, yep.
She may be waiting for her son, so if you wanna pray.
Oh, yeah,